I never thought I'd be telling this story. I always believed I had a good sense of who people really were, especially the man I planned to marry. But I was wrong. Terrifyingly, heartbreakingly wrong. I'm 25 years old. I have a beautiful 2-year-old son from a previous relationship, and for the last year, I truly believed I had found a second chance at love with my fiancé, a man who told me he loved me, loved my son, and wanted to build a life with us. It felt real, stable, safe, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. After giving birth to my son, I chose to get a birth control implant, Nexplanon, inserted into my upper arm. It was supposed to last 3 years, and I was grateful for the peace of mind. With so much already on my plate, I wasn't ready to think about having another child. Not yet. Not until I felt more secure, more grounded, and honestly, more healed. But a few months ago, things started to shift. My fiancé started talking about wanting a baby. Not just talking, insisting. At first, it felt like an innocent conversation. When do you think we should have one? He asked. I told him I did want another child someday, just not right now. We weren't financially ready, and emotionally, I still had work to do. But that answer wasn't enough for him. He wanted a baby now. He wanted me pregnant now. I reminded him gently that I still had time left on my implant, and that once the 3 years were up, I'd get it removed and we could try then. I thought that was a reasonable compromise. But he didn't see it that way. He got angry, said I was putting off his dreams, said I was choosing control over love. He looked me in the eyes and told me that he wanted a child of his own, his blood, his genetics, and that every time he looked at my son, he felt anger. Those words hit me like a slap. I didn't even know what to say. This was the same man who held my son's hand on walks, who read him bedtime stories. And now he was telling me he felt nothing? That my child, my baby, reminded him of someone he hated? I stood my ground. I told him, again, that I wasn't ready. That trying to force something so life-changing wasn't love. It was manipulation. We argued. Voices rose. Tensions boiled. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I was emotionally drained and just needed to sleep, hoping that things would look different in the morning. That night, like always, I took my prescribed sleeping meds, strong ones that knocked me out completely. I trusted that the man I loved would let me rest, that no matter how upset he was, he would never cross a line. But I was wrong. That night, after everything we said, after hearing that he resented my child, after being told I was standing in the way of his happiness, I just wanted to disappear into sleep. My head was spinning. My chest felt tight. I took my meds like always, and within minutes, I was completely out. Or at least, I thought I was. Sometime in the night, I stirred. Just slightly, not fully awake. I felt something on my arm. Fingers. Light, deliberate touches on the inside of my upper arm, right where the Nexplanon implant was. Still half asleep, I mumbled something like, "Stop poking me," thinking maybe he was being childish, still upset from our fight. I figured he'd gotten bored and was just trying to annoy me. But he didn't stop. Instead, I felt pressure. Intentional, firm pressure, directly on the implant. Something inside me clicked. I blinked open my eyes. And that's when I saw it. He was leaning over me. His fingers pressed into the exact spot where my birth control sat under the skin, and in his other hand, clutched tightly, was a box cutter. A box cutter? I froze. My heart started hammering so loudly I could barely hear. I blinked again, convinced I was still asleep, that this had to be some kind of medicated nightmare. But it wasn't. It was real. I pulled my arm back, wide awake now, and asked, "What the hell are you doing?" He flinched. Eyes guilty. Caught. And then, as if it would make everything better, he started fumbling for excuses. "I was just checking on you," he said. "Making sure you were alive." "With a box cutter?" I asked, my voice shaking. He paused. Then he said, "It was a coincidence. I just had it in my hand." Coincidence. He thought I would believe this was a coincidence. I sat up, heart pounding, and demanded the truth. And that's when he dropped the act. He looked down, then back at me, and said, "I was doing you a favor." A favor. He told me he had been researching how to remove a Nexplanon implant, that he'd read about it, that it wasn't that hard, that he was confident he could do it himself. He said if he could just remove it tonight, we could start a family immediately. No need to wait. I stared at him in disbelief, horror rising in my throat. He wasn't joking. He was actually serious. He was about to cut into my arm while I was unconscious. I lost it. I screamed at him to get away from me, to not touch me, to leave the house, right now. He kept trying to talk, trying to calm me down, trying to spin what he did into something caring or rational. But there was no coming back from this. I was shaking, screaming, practically falling over myself to get away from him. Finally, he left the room. A moment later, I heard the front door slam. And then silence. I sat on the bed for what felt like hours, just staring at the space where he had stood. Terrified. Betrayed. Numb. This was the man I planned to marry. The man I trusted in my home. Around my son. And he had just tried to perform an unlicensed medical procedure on my unconscious body, just to get what he wanted. That night, everything I thought I knew about him shattered. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the box cutter. His face. His hands hovering over my arm. The idea that he could have cut me open while I was unconscious, while my son was sleeping in the next room, made me feel physically ill. My mind kept looping through the same horrifying question. What if I hadn't woken up? By 5 a.m., I knew I couldn't stay in that house another second. I packed a bag for my son, just a backpack with some clothes, diapers, and his favorite stuffed dinosaur. I threw together what I could for myself. No real plan. Just get out. I called my mom. The moment she picked up and heard my voice, she said, "What happened?" I broke. I started sobbing, the kind of deep, heaving crying where you can't get the words out. All I managed to say was, "Can I come home?" And she just said, "Yes. Right now? Come home." 10 minutes later, I had my son in his car seat, and we were gone. The sun hadn't even come up. Driving through those empty streets in the early morning haze, my hands were trembling on the steering wheel. My son was talking in the back seat about how early it was and if we were going somewhere fun. He didn't know anything. He didn't understand why Mommy looked like she'd been crying all night. When we got to my mom's, she opened the front door before I even knocked. I didn't say anything. She just pulled me into a hug, and for a minute, I felt like a scared kid again, not a 25-year-old woman fleeing a man who tried to slice into her arm in her sleep. After breakfast, I told her everything. Not just the box cutter, everything. The way he'd spoken about my son, how he resented him, how he didn't feel love for the child who looked at him like a father, the way he tried to convince me I didn't need birth control, how angry he got when I said I wasn't ready for another baby. And then, the box cutter. The moment I opened my eyes to see a blade inches from my skin. My mom just sat there, pale, her hand over her mouth. When I finished, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're never going back there." And I knew she was right. That was the moment I stopped trying to rationalize it. Because before that, some tiny, broken part of me was still whispering, maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe he'll apologize. Maybe he'll change. But no, that moment in my mother's kitchen, I knew. He didn't just try to violate my body. He tried to take control of my future, of my son's future. And there's no coming back from that. So I made my decision. I wasn't going back. I was pressing charges. I was filing for protection. I was moving. I was done. The man I loved? He didn't exist anymore. The next morning, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Text after text. Voicemails. Missed calls. All from him. He said he was worried. That I'd left out of nowhere. That he didn't understand what was happening. Not a single mention of the fight. Not a word about the box cutter. Just confusion. Concern. Innocence. He even called my mom while we were sitting at the kitchen table eating breakfast. She asked, "Do you want me to answer?" I just shook my head and whispered, "I can't." So she picked up, calm as ever. He was panicked, rambling about how I'd disappeared with my son, how he was afraid something bad had happened. My mom said, "We're safe. That's all you need to know," and hung up. That was the final push. It was time to make this real. She looked at me and asked gently, "Are you ready to go to the police?" I nodded. We went straight to the station. I told them everything. About the argument, the box cutter, the pressure to remove my implant, how I'd woken up with him over me. But because he hadn't physically hurt me, there was nothing they could charge him with. It would be his word against mine. Unless I'd been cut, they said, the DA would likely drop it. It was infuriating. But they did offer a protective option, an ex parte order, a temporary restraining order. I filled out the paperwork at the courthouse that same day. Every detail, every word I could remember. My mom sat beside me, holding my hand, helping me remember what he'd said, what I'd felt. The clerk said the judge would review it immediately. And a few hours later, she called me personally. The order was granted. I had to come in and pick up the official documents, including a court date to make it permanent. My ex would be served soon. Until then, he was legally banned from contacting me or coming near me or my son. That gave me my first breath of relief in 24 hours. But it wasn't over yet. Next step, get out for good. I called my landlord to give 30 days notice. Thankfully, the lease was in my name. Most of the furniture too. He was sympathetic, said he understood, and wished me luck. Then I started closing utility accounts, water, electric, gas, internet, all of it. Every little task felt like a thread being cut, separating me from the nightmare I'd lived in. When my mom asked what I wanted to do about my belongings, I told her I didn't want to leave anything behind. Everything that belonged to me and my son, I wanted it gone. Out. Safe. She suggested a storage unit. My brothers volunteered to help. They even recommended bringing an officer for a civil standby, just in case he tried to come back while we were there. It was a plan. And for the first time since that night, I felt like I had a little bit of control again. We weren't just running anymore. We were building our escape route, piece by piece. He got served. It didn't take long after the papers were delivered before his silence snapped. And when he snapped, it wasn't quiet. He posted a photo of the restraining order on Facebook, with my full name and our son's name visible. Alongside a rambling caption about how I'd vanished and how he was being wrongfully accused. A public meltdown with my private information. A mutual friend screenshotted it immediately and sent it to me. I was trembling with fury. I felt violated all over again. This wasn't just a desperate man. This was a man broadcasting to the world that he still had power over me. I called the police. They filed an incident report, and while they didn't arrest him, they documented the violation. My lawyer, a shark my mother had handpicked, sprang into action. He filed a motion for contempt of court and expedited the hearing. The judge agreed. Within 48 hours, we were in court. I sat on one side of the courtroom with my lawyer beside me. He positioned himself physically between me and my ex at all times. I was still shaking when I walked in, but I wasn't alone. He had come by himself. No lawyer. The judge was stern. If you post about this woman or her child again, even once, you'll spend 24 hours in jail per incident. His face went pale. And then the judge ordered him to pay my legal fees for this emergency session. He didn't argue. He just stared at the table like a sulking child. It was a small victory, but it tasted sweet. The next day, we moved. My family showed up in full force. My brothers, cousins, two of my best friends. We'd planned everything down to the minute. We knew my ex was working. We had a police officer accompany us. And we only took what was legally mine and my son's. We were in and out within a few hours. Everything important went in 2 separate, gated storage units. Essentials came with us to my mom's. I didn't want to leave anything behind that he could twist into an excuse to contact me. Even now, I sleep lightly. I check windows. I keep my phone nearby, not for messages but for evidence. I've warned his daycare. I've made sure my son only knows that we're on a fun sleepover with his Mimi. He's happy playing with her cats and dog, animals we could never have at our old place. He asks where Papa is sometimes. I just say, he's busy right now. He doesn't cry about it. But I do sometimes when he's asleep. Because even though I'm the one who got us out, it still doesn't feel like I'm safe yet. But I'm getting there. Piece by piece. Day by day. It's strange how something so terrifying can be wrapped in such an ordinary package, a courtroom with fluorescent lights, worn carpets, and chairs that creak too loudly when you sit. But that's where I faced him for what I hope is the last time. The official hearing for the permanent restraining order. He showed up, alone again. No lawyer. No defense. I had my lawyer and the truth. That was enough. The judge called our case, and my heart tried to punch its way out of my ribcage. I kept my eyes forward. I didn't dare look at him, not when I stood, not when I answered the judge's questions. I kept my words measured. Clear. Undeniable. I told the court how I woke up with his fingers pressing into my skin, how I saw the box cutter in his hand. I told them about the Facebook post, the calls to my family, the voicemails, the paranoia, the fear. I told them how my son still asks when we're going home, and how I don't know what home means anymore. My voice cracked once when I said, I don't want him near my son, ever again. But I didn't cry. My lawyer presented everything. The screenshot. The incident report. The judge didn't need long. The order was granted. 1 year. Automatically renewable. If he contests it, we'll be back here. But I'm ready. The moment the gavel hit, A part of me exhaled for the first time in weeks. He tried to speak. The judge cut him off. He left in silence. No apology. No remorse. Just the click of his shoes disappearing down the hallway. Later that night, my mom cooked a big dinner. My brothers came over. My son sat on my lap, giggling, covered in mashed potatoes. It was chaotic and messy, and full of light. No tension. No yelling. No box cutters in the dark. Just love. Am I healed? No. Am I done? Not yet. I still check the locks twice. I still sleep with the lights on sometimes. But now I can breathe. I can look at my son and know I made the right choice, even if it took too long. He deserves a mother who's brave. He deserves a life where no one ever threatens his safety. And I deserve peace. It's not a movie ending. It's better. It's a beginning. It's been a month. 32 days, to be exact. No knocks on the door. No block number voicemails. No police reports. Just quiet. For the first time in what feels like years, my mornings are filled with cereal bowls, sunlight, and my son asking if dinosaurs could fit in Mimi's backyard. I tell him yes. Of course. If it makes him smile, it's true. The restraining order stands. The court hasn't heard from him again. My lawyer checks in once a week, but it's become routine now. Another box to check, another item to file. I've started therapy. So has my son, in a playful, gentle way. His counselor says he's incredibly resilient. I already knew that. He's stronger than anyone gives him credit for. We're still living with my mom, but it doesn't feel like a step backward. It feels like choosing safety over silence. My mom calls us her sun and moon. She says I've brought warmth back into the house, and my son brings the light. Sometimes I think she saved me more than once, just by being steady when I couldn't be. I haven't started dating. I'm not ready. I'm learning to be okay with just me. Learning that love isn't supposed to feel like feared. That being heard isn't the same as being controlled. I still get nightmares. Some nights I wake up with my heart hammering, convinced there's a shadow at the door. But I check. There isn't. And every morning I wake up with my son curled beside me. I remember that we made it out. We are not victims. We are survivors. And every laugh, every meal, every morning we greet without fear. That's our quiet victory. If someone out there is reading this, trapped in something that doesn't feel right, listen to that voice inside you. It's not being dramatic. It's not overreacting. It's trying to protect you. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to start over. You're allowed to choose yourself and the people you love. I did. And for the first time in a long, long time. I'm okay. We're okay.